Isn't starting an Airbnb always the most lucrative way to make money? In Canada, hosts use their Airbnb income to pay bills, renovate homes, pay for their own holidays, and much more. It is obviously a great business opportunity, and I'm sure you're also thinking of starting something like this, especially when everything is so expensive. But do you know, unlike other countries, Canada has stringent rules and regulations for Airbnb rentals, and you might land in extreme trouble if you don't know about them. So today, we will be discussing these Airbnb regulations and how much you can save yourself from a heavy penalty. I'm Mugdha, and you're listening to the News Spark.
Hey Mugdha, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. So Mugdha, first of all, thank you so much for coming here and discussing about Airbnb with us. And since we're talking about making money from Airbnb, my first question to you is, how much can a host make from Airbnb?
Oh my God. Well, it's a lot of money, honestly. But yes, I'll give you the figures. So, new Airbnb hosts in Canada have earned about $6 billion since the COVID pandemic.
Wow.
$6 billion, right? And as of last year, the average annual earnings per host who welcomed at least one guest during the preceding year was $9,600.
Wow, that's a decent figure. I mean, in this time when everything is so expensive, this seems to be a great way to earn passive income, right?
Yes, it is. But that's the thing, it might not be your passive income.
Okay.
So the thing is, if you offer extra services like meals, security, cleaning, then it can be regarded that you are running an Airbnb business and it will be classified as income from business. That
Okay.
is your self-employment business.
Got it.
So it might not be your passive income, so the implications will differ.
Got it. So you have to keep in mind whether your Airbnb is classified as a self-employment income or a passive income.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the tax implications will be different.
Absolutely, yes. It's going to be different. Yeah.
Got it. So Mugdha, so do I need to file taxes for Airbnb business? I assume that it is a responsibility of the host to file the taxes in a timely manner. And if it gets classified as a business income, then I guess you can also claim a deduction to the Airbnb expenses.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, that is the host's responsibility. In fact, Canada uses a self-assessment system, right? Meaning that it is the host's responsibility to file and pay taxes on time, right? And they'll usually have to fill a form T776, in which basically they declare their income earned from the property rentals.
Got it.
And like you mentioned about deductions, right? So you can claim deductions as well from your rental income. So, those expenses would be like insurance, property taxes, utilities, so such kind of things.
Right. But sometimes you're only renting out a room, right? So then how do you deduct business expenses then?
Well, that's also easy, right? Because if you are just renting out a room, for instance, then you'll have to divide the generic expenses like utilities. And obviously that has to be done in a fair way.
Got it. Mugdha, I keep on hearing that Airbnb rentals are not allowed in Canada. First of all, how much of that is true? Are we allowed to rent our property on Airbnb?
Yeah, I mean, just like other countries, Airbnb has regulations everywhere. You need to check, whether it's allowed or not. For instance, in Canada, if your property is mortgaged, then you need to check with the financial institution first whether the lender restricts the right to, hosting or subletting. Personally, I recommend that it's best to consult either your strata or the lawyer, to check for these regulations.
Got it. And regulation differs in Canada across provinces. So something which may be allowed in, let's say, Alberta may not be allowed in BC. So what are the province-wise regulations, for example, in BC?
Yeah, so if I talk about BC, so for instance, in Vancouver, right, vacation rentals are only permitted if it's an entire home or even if it is a room within the property, it should be classified as your primary residence.
Got it.
So for instance, a basement suite or a secondary home is only allowed to be rented out on a short-term basis if it is your principal residence and you reside there full-time. That's the law in Vancouver. Yes.
Okay.
But you know what? Sometimes I think, like, why is this restriction? I mean, it's your property or properties,
Right.
right? And so shouldn't you be allowed to, rent to whoever you like to?
Well, not really. Some people are actually not using their principal residence. They're using their investment unit as a Airbnb or a short-term rental. That's not right.
Yeah.
This is a very serious issue. For example, Vancouver and Toronto are experiencing a housing crisis. And some people are taking advantage of the system and trying to make some money using some illegal short-term rentals.
Yeah, like there are students out there,
Right.
people on visas, and they'll have a problem, right?
Right. So what about the tourists who book these Airbnbs? Do they pay high taxes? Does it matter if these guests are coming for a shorter or a longer vacation?
Oh, yeah. Another interesting question. So, yes, Airbnbs are equally expensive as hotel prices for tourists, right? Because when our tourist is booking an affordable, trying to book an affordable Airbnb, they feel that it's affordable, but they impose so many taxes that the final price is always very expensive.
Right.
And then guests also have to pay a GST and an HST on that. Also, depending on where the listing is located, these additional taxes can range between 2% to 8%, which is a lot.
Right.
And the interesting part is that these taxes do not apply if the guest is booking a vacation for more than a month.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. So Mugdha, we discussed about Vancouver. What are the rules and regulations in that city and that province, right? What about Toronto? That's another big city in Canada. So if you can give us some information about that.
Yes. So in Toronto, Ontario, the rules are quite similar. Like short-term renting is only allowed if the listing, is the principal resident of the host.
Okay.
So that's required. And what's more is that host will first need to register with the city.
Okay.
Yes. Their listing registration number should be posted on their listing as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happens after when you are operating an illegal Airbnb?
Well, there have been so many illegal Airbnbs, honestly. Like there are around 4,000 active listings for short-term rentals in Vancouver. And so far in 2023, this year, 132 licenses have been suspended. 120 violation tickets have been issued and 54 units have been flagged under investigations.
Okay.
So yes, so to answer your question, the current fine is $1,000 per violation.
Okay. So Mugdha, why is this happening even when people are aware of short-term regulations?
This is happening because it's just easy money. Like for short-term rentals, you could probably make money in 2-3 days, instead of the entire month, right? So that's why, these are operating, illegal, this illegal business is going on.
Okay. So how do the hosts operating an illegal business are caught?
The city does not inspect each property because that's not possible, right? But yes, an inspection is triggered, either through maybe a complaint. It can come from your neighbors, right? Or maybe a random audit, or, there is like suspension, then some illegal run operations are going on. So yeah, basically anything can trigger a complaint.
Right.
Yeah.
And we are living in a society, so we should be aware of these things, because at the end of the day, if you're running something illegal, it's gonna affect the housing crisis that Canada is already seeing, right? So we should all be aware of what is happening. But thank you so much, Mugdha, for coming here and answering all our questions about Airbnb. And I hope our listeners were able to get some knowledge about that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. You don't want inspectors knocking on your doors and issuing penalties because you're operating something illegally. Airbnb does seem to be lucrative, but then the regulations are immense. And if you're not sure, it is always good to pay a lawyer before starting something that might have consequences. Thank you for watching. See you next time.